Priya Patel had always believed she was living the dream. Born and raised in India, she had come to the United States with nothing but ambition and a heart full of hope. Years later, she had built a beautiful life in California, a loving husband, a cozy home, and a successful job at a tech firm. Her husband, Raj, was charming and dependable, at least that was how she had always seen him. They were the picture of stability, admired by friends and adored by family. On social media, they looked perfect, the kind of couple who made love seem effortless. But behind the smiling photographs and the shared dinners, there were small, almost invisible cracks forming. Raj had begun staying late at the office, and the warmth in his eyes had turned distant. When Priya asked, he blamed work deadlines and stress, and she chose to believe him. Love made her hopeful, and hope made her blind. It happened on a quiet evening when she decided to surprise him with a homemade dinner to celebrate their anniversary early. She opened his laptop to play music and saw an email notification flash on the screen. A message from someone named M. She wasn't the suspicious type, but curiosity tugged at her heart. One click changed everything. Words of affection, secret plans, hotel bookings, and photographs that shattered her soul appeared before her. It wasn't just an affair, it was a betrayal of everything she stood for. Her hands trembled, her chest tightened, and for a long time, she just stared at the screen in disbelief. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. All the laughter they once shared now felt like a lie. She wanted to scream, to cry, to ask why, but something inside her refused to break. That night, Priya didn't confront Raj. She didn't throw things or demand answers. She simply watched him sleep and realized that the man beside her was a stranger. In the silence, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She wouldn't beg for love that had already died. Instead, she would build something that no one could take from her again, her power. The next morning, she started with small steps. She went for a run, cleared her head, and opened her journal. She wrote down everything she felt, pain, anger, sadness, and then, a single sentence that stood out among the chaos: I will rise. Over the next 2 weeks, she transformed her pain into purpose. She stopped waiting for apologies and started creating plans. She attended business workshops, reached out to mentors, and worked on an idea that had long lived in the back of her mind, a wellness brand that focused on healing and self-worth. The project became her therapy. Every design, every word, every decision reminded her that she was more than a broken heart. 2 weeks after discovering the betrayal, she launched her online store, Phoenix Rise. It symbolized everything she had endured and overcome. Within days, her story spread. Women connected with her message of strength and renewal. Raj lost his job when his affair became known at work, and his mistress disappeared from his life soon after. But Priya didn't celebrate his downfall, she no longer needed to. Her revenge had never been about destroying him, it was about reclaiming herself. Standing in her new office, surrounded by boxes of her products, she realized the truth: sometimes the best revenge isn't anger or payback. It's success, peace, and the courage to rise higher than those who tried to break you. Priya had lost her husband, but she had found herself, and that was a victory worth everything. The success of Phoenix Rise began quietly, almost humbly. What started as a small online store run from Priya's apartment soon began to capture attention. Her products, handcrafted candles, herbal teas, and self-care kits, were more than just items, they carried a message of healing and strength. Every product came with a handwritten note that read, "You can rise from anything." Customers started sharing their experiences on social media, posting about how her brand had inspired them to find strength through heartbreak, stress, and failure. The name, Phoenix Rise, began trending among women's groups, self-care communities, and motivational blogs. Priya's story became a symbol of resilience. She never mentioned Raj's name publicly, but people could sense there was a story behind her determination. Her pain had quietly evolved into purpose, and that purpose was changing lives. Behind the scenes, her transformation was still ongoing. She had moments when memories would surface unexpectedly, like the sound of Raj's laughter echoing through their old house or the faint smell of his cologne when she unpacked a forgotten box. Each reminder used to hurt, but now, they simply fueled her determination. Priya had learned that moving on wasn't about erasing the past, it was about refusing to let it define her future. She spent long nights working on branding, packaging, and customer feedback, determined to make her business something meaningful. When exhaustion crept in, she reminded herself of the night she had found those emails, the moment her world had fallen apart. That memory wasn't her weakness anymore, it was her motivation. As Phoenix Rise grew, media outlets began reaching out. A small women's magazine asked to feature her in a story about female entrepreneurs, and then a popular lifestyle blogger interviewed her for a podcast. Priya spoke openly about rebuilding after betrayal, about finding purpose through pain. Her words resonated with thousands. Soon, she was invited to speak at local women's empowerment events. Standing on stage for the first time, looking at the faces of women who saw hope in her journey, she felt something powerful awaken inside her. For the first time, she realized that her success wasn't just personal, it was part of something much larger. She was giving others permission to heal too. Meanwhile, Raj's life had taken a sharp turn. The affair had cost him his reputation at work, and his relationship with the woman he had chosen over Priya had ended in silence. He watched from a distance as Phoenix Rise flourished. Every time her story appeared online, every time her name was mentioned, it reminded him of what he had lost. But Priya didn't look back. She no longer needed closure, because she had built a new beginning. Months passed, and the small brand evolved into a full-fledged business. Priya hired a team, opened a modest studio, and began planning workshops that taught self-care, financial independence, and emotional healing. Her mission had grown beyond selling products, it was now about transforming lives. When she walked into her office each morning, sunlight spilling through the windows, she felt peace in a way she never had before. The woman who had once been shattered was now unshakable. Her success wasn't just revenge, it was redemption. Priya had turned her heartbreak into hope, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever believed they couldn't rise again. With time, Phoenix Rise evolved from a small online venture into a recognized lifestyle brand across the United States. Priya's story continued to attract attention, not because of drama or scandal, but because of her quiet strength and authenticity. She had become a public figure without ever chasing fame. Her workshops sold out within hours, her motivational posts went viral, and she began collaborating with mental health organizations to support women recovering from emotional trauma. She was no longer just selling products, she was building a movement. Each day, messages poured in from women around the world sharing how her journey had helped them walk away from toxic relationships, rediscover their confidence, or rebuild their careers. Priya had become what she once needed most, a source of hope when everything else seemed lost. Though her life now looked glamorous from the outside, it wasn't without challenges. Success brought pressure, attention, and the heavy responsibility of being a symbol for others. There were days when she felt overwhelmed, nights when exhaustion left her drained. Yet, every time she thought of quitting, she remembered the moment her old life had collapsed. That memory no longer haunted her, it guided her. Pain had shaped her into someone unbreakable, and she refused to let anything or anyone make her feel small again. She practiced mindfulness, journaled daily, and surrounded herself with people who believed in her mission. Slowly, she built a new kind of family, one formed by friendship, loyalty, and shared purpose. Meanwhile, fate found a way to bring Raj back into her orbit. One afternoon, as she prepared for a charity gala, she received a message from an old mutual friend. Raj was struggling, unemployed, and living alone. His life had unraveled completely. For a brief moment, Priya felt a flicker of sympathy. He had once been the person she trusted most, the man she built her dreams with. But the compassion she felt wasn't the kind that pulls someone back, it was the kind that comes from healing. She had forgiven him, not to make peace with him, but to free herself. There was nothing left to confront or fix. His chapter in her story was over. When the gala night arrived, Priya stood in front of hundreds of people, sharing her message about resilience and self-worth. The audience listened in silence, many moved to tears. Cameras flashed as she ended her speech with words that would later be quoted everywhere: "Strength is not born in comfort, it's born in chaos. You don't lose when you're broken, you lose when you stop trying to rise." The applause that followed echoed through the hall like thunder. After the event, she stepped outside into the cool night air. The city lights shimmered around her, and for the first time, she felt completely free. Her journey from heartbreak to healing had come full circle. She no longer saw herself as a victim of betrayal but as the author of her own destiny. Her revenge had never been about making anyone suffer, it had been about reclaiming her life, her peace, and her power. Priya smiled to herself, realizing that the woman who once wept over a broken marriage had transformed into a force of inspiration. And in that quiet moment under the stars, she finally understood. She hadn't just risen from the ashes, she had learned how to fly. As months turned into a year, Priya's name began to appear on lists of rising entrepreneurs and influential women of color in America. Her journey from heartbreak to empowerment had captured the attention of mainstream media. Interviews, magazine covers, and invitations to international conferences started pouring in. Yet, beneath all the recognition, Priya stayed grounded. She remembered the lonely nights in her small apartment, when her only motivation came from the silent promise she had made to herself, to rise. Now, every stage she stood on, every word she spoke, carried that same promise forward for others who needed it. She was no longer defined by what had happened to her but by what she had chosen to become afterward. One of the defining moments of her career came when she was invited to deliver a keynote speech at a global women's summit in New York. The event gathered thousands of women from across the world, CEOs, artists, activists, and dreamers. Standing backstage, Priya felt a rush of emotion. It wasn't nerves, it was gratitude. A year ago, she had been a heartbroken wife trying to piece together her identity. Now, she was a leader reminding others that they could rebuild their lives too. When she walked onto the stage, the applause was thunderous. She spoke not from a place of anger or revenge, but from love for herself, for the strength she had discovered, and for the women who found courage through her journey. Her speech ended with a standing ovation, and that night, her story became a trending topic around the world. While her career reached new heights, Priya continued to focus on the deeper purpose of her work. She expanded Phoenix Rise into mentorship programs, offering scholarships for women entrepreneurs and funding small businesses led by survivors of abuse and betrayal. What had started as a brand of self-care products was now a social movement. People didn't just buy from Phoenix Rise, they believed in it. Her brand's message, to turn pain into power, was no longer just her truth, it had become a collective anthem. In the midst of all this growth, she found time to return to India for the first time since her success. Walking through the narrow streets of her hometown, she reflected on how far she had come, from a young woman with big dreams to someone who had conquered her own darkness and created light for others. Her parents watched her with pride, realizing their daughter had not only rebuilt her life but had redefined what strength meant for countless women. The homecoming gave her a sense of closure she hadn't known she needed. Back in the United States, Priya's empire continued to grow, but what mattered most to her was peace, the kind that came from knowing she had faced betrayal and turned it into transformation. She didn't hate Raj, she no longer felt anything toward him. The chapter that once caused her pain had become her greatest teacher. She learned that revenge doesn't always wear the face of vengeance. Sometimes, it's simply the quiet satisfaction of standing tall, unbroken, while those who doubted you fade into the background. Priya had mastered the art of moving forward, proving that no betrayal could defeat a woman who chooses to rise. 2 years after the day her world had fallen apart, Priya's life looked completely different. Her business had expanded to international markets, with branches in London, Dubai, and Mumbai. Her company employed hundreds of people, most of them women who had once faced setbacks and heartbreaks like her. Every product line under Phoenix Rise carried a message of renewal, of starting again no matter how deep the wounds ran. Priya had become more than a successful entrepreneur, she had become a symbol of transformation. Yet, in the midst of her achievements, she remained humble. She often reminded herself that she hadn't built her empire from ambition alone, it was built from pain, courage, and an unshakable will to heal. Her days were full but meaningful. She woke up early to meditate, began her mornings with gratitude, and spent her evenings working with her foundation to help young girls receive education and training. She had turned her personal mission into a movement of empowerment. The world admired her strength, but few truly understood the weight of her journey. Every success carried echoes of the woman she once was, the one who had cried in silence, unsure of what her future held. Those memories kept her kind, patient, and grounded. One afternoon, while attending a charity event in Los Angeles, Priya unexpectedly crossed paths with Raj. He looked older, worn out, and far from the confident man she had once known. His eyes revealed regret, the kind that lingers long after words lose meaning. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and time seemed to pause. But instead of anger or sadness, Priya felt something entirely new, peace. There was no hatred left, no bitterness, no desire for revenge. She simply nodded politely and walked away, her heart calm and her spirit free. That moment became her final closure, the silent confirmation that she had truly moved on. As the years went by, Priya's influence only deepened. She began writing her first book, sharing her journey from betrayal to rebirth, hoping it would help others find their strength. Her story became a documentary that touched millions of hearts, not for its drama but for its message, that even the worst pain can be the seed of something powerful. She continued to inspire through her speeches, teaching that revenge wasn't about destroying someone else's world, but about building your own with purpose and pride. On a quiet evening, standing on the balcony of her new home overlooking the city lights, Priya reflected on everything she had become. The woman who once thought her life was over had discovered that endings could be beginnings in disguise. She no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. Her revenge had never been fire and fury, it was grace, growth, and the ability to shine brighter than ever before. As the wind brushed against her face, she whispered a silent thank you to life, for the heartbreak, for the lessons, and for the strength it gave her to rise again. And in that moment, Priya knew her story wasn't one of loss, but of triumph. She had turned betrayal into brilliance and pain into purpose, leaving behind not just a legacy, but a light for others to follow.